Many of us have recently gone through what I would call a tower moment. This is something that happened where we were no longer able to stop refusing to see the truth of our lives, of a situation that we were in. It may have been a bad situation, or it could have even been a good situation that we were in. But what it was is it was somehow related or based on finding external validation, power, comfort, worth, safety, and security. Basically, finding those things outside of ourselves. So, whether that was in a relationship, whether that was in a family situation, a job, status, money, um, so many different things that it could have been, right? Can manifest in so many ways. But basically, whatever that was, that we were refusing to see that even if that thing was good, we were putting too much, we were relying too much on that. And instead of being able to see that where our actual power comes from, we didn't want to open our eyes. We just wanted to keep living in that same shit. And so Spirit came around and said, hey, knock, knock, knock. Except the knock, knock, knock was, and everything that you thought you needed in order to be okay, that you did need in order to be okay, perhaps, gone. Leveled to the ground. No longer there. So, what do you do now? When you have this judgment moment where you have lost everything that you thought you needed in order to feel valid, in order to feel worthy, in order to feel like you were loved, in order to feel like life was worth living, or that you were worth anything, or that you had power in the world, all of these external things, like where do you go from there when it's all gone? Well, you reflect. And if you're like a lot of us, you wake up. You are able to start on a journey of self empowerment. You begin to see that you don't actually find lasting power or worthiness or fulfillment or happiness or love or belongingness from anything outside of you. And that sounds so cliche, but it's true. It's true. Um, Everything is within. And so that is what basically this is about. It's about this tower moment, this refusal to see, or perhaps maybe even more than one tower moment. It often might take more than once to get the idea. I know for me, it did. And I know for our culture and our archetype, it sure has. But the good thing is that with this judgment, we were able to actually see this for the first time. Whereas in the past, we may not have understood why this was happening, why everything was all fucked. Now we're able to draw the lines and see, oh, this is gone from me because I can't rely on it anymore, because I can't keep doing this. There has to be another way. There has to be another way. And as you start rebuilding on more stable foundations, you begin to see that self-worth come up, that self-empowerment. You begin to make new and better choices in order to stop those patterns. So, for example, if you are like me and you maybe have had a bit of the damsel archetype in your system, and you have tended to try to, or unconsciously, or maybe even consciously, give your power away to situations such as relationships in order for you to feel worthy of being loved, in needing a white knight to come and save you, in needing that validation from another person constantly in order to feel worthy and in order to feel loved, and feeling like you need someone else in order to be able to stand up. Basically, choosing through a lot of bullshit to stop doing it. to finally stop. And if you're like me, maybe actually accidentally doing it one more time. But then stopping. Right? Like, it's like eventually it has to stop. Eventually you get the idea and you start making the better decisions. And it's not saying that you have to be perfect. It's just like, okay, I see what's happening. I'm learning and I'm making better choices. And eventually it really, really, really starts to add up, because it starts to actually not only play out in a security internally, but because you're building up this inner self-worth and inner security and this inner knowing of like you can stand on your own, then that starts to reflect outwardly, because then you do end up with the financial abundance, the emotional connections and friendships that you wanted, that you couldn't even seem to find. But because you're being true to yourself and being more aligned with your higher self and your best self and finding your empowerment, that's those things start to come out of you, because you're willing to put in the work. You're willing to say no to the short term so that the long term can emerge. You're willing to say, I'm leaving home. I'm not going to keep following this. I'm letting go of my security blanket. I'm going to put my mind over my heart and I'm going to make some shit happen. I'm going to stop. And you do. And so this can all be happening on different timelines. So we may all be at different points in this if you do resonate with it. From what I am experiencing and the way that I'm taking it, is that right now we're kind of in this energy where success is starting to become apparent. It's not just some distant thing that we're waiting for in the future, it's actually coming to fruition. We're starting to see these results. We're starting to see how taking these actions and laying these foundations, putting these seeds in the ground, and sticking with it has actually started to play out for us. So that is awesome. So what needs to be highlighted, I think, though, is that this emotional intelligence that's coming out, this sensitivity, this heart-centered way of life and empowerment that we are moving towards and beginning to live in more and more. As much as this is based in a softness, in an unfolding and an openness, it is important to protect it. It's important to not let go of the progress. It's important to keep this on track, because it's not just going to keep happening if you just give up. If we just slip back into our old patterns and stop being mindful, it's gonna still happen. Like, we're not that much out of the cycle where giving up and just like basically you can turn a blind eye and a tower moment might happen. Okay, because that in itself is a cycle now. So if you want to avoid that, you need to remember that you're not fighting against anything external. What you're doing is you are working within yourself to heal the, how do I want to say it? Basically, we all need to remain mindful of our old habits, patterns, and thoughts still being very much connected to a default trigger. So if we are getting lazy and not keeping an eye, then things can start to go back in the wrong direction. It's all about balance, and it's about a mix of pushing forward and doing this really intense work of healing ourselves, connecting with others from a really heart centered place, working to release attachments to the external world and finding our value within ourselves, working through the things that have kept us trapped in those patterns to begin with, and why do we think that we needed those external things? And being careful to also rest in that and let yourself have downtime and kind of step back in order to integrate those things, because you don't want to push yourself too hard to where you'll just be honestly pushed back into temptation because you're so burnt out. So you need to kind of keep a balance, and in the same hand, you can't just rest all the time either, because for a lot of us, myself included, this energy is still really strong. This mind fighting, this energy of pain that's still here from the past. I know I am really, really trying and putting in a lot of time and energy into working through my own bullshit. And I should say that a bit nicer, but what I mean is I'm putting a lot of effort into integrating the parts of myself that I used to reject, to working on the shit in my own life that has led me to the place of my tower moment and my judgment moment. So I know for a fact, though, that there is this part of me that's still coming up quite more than I would like to admit, that comes up internally, and while I'm able to notice it and see it and not act out on it, it's still there. So even if I'm not acting on it, I still need to be mindful that I have work to do, that I need to keep up these practices, that it's a balance of working within myself and doing the external work. It's all a balance, and it's all something that I'm sure as hell learning how to do. But I think the point is, in the end, is that things are working out. That as long as we all keep trying and pushing in the right direction, pushing and resting in the right direction, having a balance between all things in terms of healing and growing, resting and creating, then magical things are happening. Truly. Truly, truly, truly. And so this is my contribution to this energy right now. And I appreciate it if you stuck around this long. This is something that I'm excited to do more of, and I care a lot, and sure as hell in this with you. We are all in this together. If you are struggling, you are not alone. You have got this. Keep going, keep going, keep going. I love you. We love you. And I'll see you next time.